The Manuscript of Survival, Part 402. March 6, 2014. We have come to you today to share another important piece of information, one that for many will perhaps seem to confuse them even more at first, while for others, it will seem to be obvious from the get-go. Then, we would like to take some time to delve further into another topic that weighs heavy on many a heart. So let us begin this missive by talking about the fluctuating manner you are all starting to perceive your reality, and how you seem to float in and out of different states, without any obvious reason for it. For we think many of you can report being in an almost constant state of flux now, fluctuating between extreme clarity and obfuscation, between a surge of joy and knowingness and sense of exhaustion and despair, all coming together in a soup of contrasting and perplexing ingredients. None of them seemingly related to the others, and none of them staying long enough to let you fall into a state of permanence. Well, there is an easy explanation to all of this confusion, and that is the effect of the bleed-through of the unseen. By now, you will all have acquired some knowledge of this universe of yours, and you will have learned that what you have learned earlier on in your life is merely a small fragment of the truth. For what you have been told is what mankind so far has managed to glean by looking around them and by taking in everything they can register through their senses. And, as you know, even by utilizing the most advanced creations you have accomplished so far, you have only managed to scrape a small scratch into the surface of all of creation. And so, what you have learned as facts and as an endless list of limitations, will now become null and void for you all, as you have already started to let all of those unseen states percolate into your very core again after eons of absence. So what you have been, you are no more, or rather, what you once was, has been relegated to a quiet little corner of you, while the rest of you is busy at work, filling itself up again with all of that long-lost knowledge, and like dried-up sponges, you are soaking it up into literally every single particle of your being. For that gaping void you have all sensed so strongly within, that void where you have felt such a huge part of you have been missing, that void is now being replenished from that source you were disconnected from as you entered the state of being human. For as you all know so well by now, becoming a human means leaving behind so much of you, and so, that calling from within that has been transmitted through that God spark you all brought with you from home, that calling has been heard, and so, you have made the choices you had to make in order to be right here right now. That call to become one again has been so strong, and in all of you, it has created a strong desire to become that single but yet fully connected being you used to be. And yes, that is also the reason all of you are here at this very moment in time. For you came in, fully acknowledging the fact that your memory would once again be erased, just like it has been every single time you acquiesced to the restrictions of being a human, but this time, you also knew that the task this time would be to remember that you had forgotten. And this is exactly what you have done, and that is why the call from that void has been so powerful within you all from the very beginning. For some of you, you heard that call even before you became aware that you were only a human, and so, you have felt out of place from the very beginning. For others, that call has not been noticeable until later on in your life, when it started to make itself heard in one way or the other, and you realized it was indeed time to prick up your ears and listen. And so, that decision, that irrevocable decision was made, and you set out on a journey that has taken you all through fire and rain, through hardships but also to glorious moments of joy and companionship. And so that journey, that individual path you have all traveled to take you all to this very point, that journey will now once again take on a very different trajectory than before. For now, you will see how your path will start to interact with the paths of others in a much more direct way, and you will realize that your role will once again shift from being a singular entity on a quest for becoming whole again into becoming an active part in a circle of other beings, all being called to come together in all sorts of ways, all with their own very special purpose in mind, but every single purpose closely linked to that of another. For now, you will be called to step forth and start to truly create, not just for you, but for all of creation, and so, your days as true creators are about to begin in earnest. We know this will cause great joy in some, while it will cause even greater anxiety in others, for the questions you will be asking are, what is my role, and how will I know what I am to become? And what if I miss out on it? Well, the answer to that is indeed a very simple one, and that is simply this: you already know all that you need to know, and all of the intended connections have already been established. So what will take place now is simply a gentle and gradual firing up of all of this inherent knowledge and of all of these connections. So do not fret, dear ones. Once again we will say to each and every one of you that you are exactly where you are supposed to be, and the answers will come to you one by one as you become ready to receive them into your human state of mind. For some, they will already have started to seep through, while for others, the timing is not yet right. And remember, this is not a competition or a race to become the first one to know. No, this is in all intents and purposes an extremely complex operation, where every single person and every single event is closely linked to everything else. And so, the right trajectory and the right timing for every single fragment has been carefully calculated beforehand, and as such, know that it will all become clear to you once the time is right for you to take action in some way. And remember, sometimes taking action will mean to simply be in the same place doing exactly what you have been doing. For that can also be your role, but the difference is, this time, you will know why. So yes, you have all much to look forward to in the time ahead, but as always, it will be your physical body that at times will need to take some time out in order to readjust itself to these new surroundings. For remember, you do not exist in a vacuum, you exist in an energetic environment, and you are all closely linked up to every single section of it now. So this time, you will all feel much more strongly every single fluctuation in the energetic patterns as they rise and fall and shift about. And so, you will continue to feel off balance for most of the time, as not only will you pick up what is happening through your human sensory system, you have also started to interact with these energies in a much more complex way. This is a subject we will return to later on, for this is all a part of your new role as multidimensional beings, and so, it is a topic of endless interest and indeed endless possibilities. But let us leave it for now and concentrate on how you might find a way to stabilize yourself in all of this energetic, mental and indeed physical confusion that you are standing in the middle of. As usual, the simple answer is this: allow yourself to let it just pass through you. For the more you resist, the more you will struggle, and we will again remind you of the old image of staying out in the middle of the river and refrain from trying to hold on to the shore. For then, no matter how fast the river flows or how often it changes direction, if you let yourself be carried along with the flow, it will bring you where you need to go without you having to exert yourself needlessly. But the moment you try to change direction by going against the current, or you try to stay put in a space that feels more comfortable for you at the moment and the need to keep going will seem to be too much to contemplate, know that this will only serve to heighten the discomfort. For you are all being subjected to multiple layers of energetic communication now, and some of these new layers are starting to seep into your everyday life, and they are apt to create additional confusion within you. For you will start to see this whole process from that elevated point of view, where everything will become crystal clear, and you know that behind this wall of exhaustion and confusion lies a true nirvana ready and waiting for you. In fact, some of you have already been to this nirvana and you have gotten that first and heady taste of it, and so you can attest to the sensation of a total cessation of all discomfort, whether they be of a mental or a more physical kind. While for others, you have at least managed to get sufficiently above this energetic fray from time to time to take a deep breath that have made you feel calm, collected and ready to continue on for as long as it takes. That is because you have literally managed to get your head above the waters in the way of leaving behind any and all old perception of what is real and what is an illusion, and so, you have managed to let go of any lingering fear as to what will befall you, and indeed this whole planet in the time ahead. For then, you will simply know that all is well, and it will continue to be so for infinity. While for others, the churning of all of these different layers of energetic density will have served to pull you under from time to time, and it in turn will have made you feel as if drowning in sadness, sorrow and indeed fear for the future. Again, we do not fault anyone for falling into these deep pockets of murky water along the way, for that is only as expected, for we also know fully well that these are merely pockets of polluted waters that you will soon exit, and you will start to see clearly yet again. Yes, we know that this is a subject that may cause even more confusion and dissent amongst you, but again, we are here to remind you that even if this process may seem even more chaotic than before, this is simply because you have made yourself able to connect even deeper into this multi-layered cake of creation, and so, your humanness will still try to go in and reset the dial back to what it still may look upon as normal. In other words, many of you will still fall back to looking upon this whole process through the eyes and the mind of a human, and you will try to select only that single layer that you are already familiar with. And so, you will feel even more unsettled by this increasingly complex array of signals coming into your system. Be that as it may, it is simply a phase that you will soon learn to disconnect from, and as you have already been firmly reconnected to this other, more multidexterous part of your being, you will soon learn to trust yourself as a traveler on multiple planes. For this is simply a process of remembering who you really are, and even if this period of true recollection is confusing, it will soon start to fall into place, and so, we have every reason to expect that every single one of you will be able to float more comfortably in this ever-increasing flood of light. For you will all start to learn to raise yourself to the surface every time you sense that old layer of density trying to drag you below that crystal-clear surface and down into the silty depths. And then you will truly understand that the future is indeed bright for you all, no matter how hard any outside events may try to murky up the waters in any way. For remember, what you sense through your humanness is literally one-dimensional, and as such, it is restricted to that old version of your world, and indeed that old version of you. But now, both you and your world have graduated from that old school of singularity, and you have already started to follow the classes in becoming a fully fledged multidimensional member of the multiverse again. And as for all freshmen, this first period will perhaps make you feel even less accomplished than before, but we know that before long, you will all take to this like fish to water again. For that is what you really are, full-blown members of the Advanced Swimmers Club. For you are no strangers to these waters, and even if this huge, infinite ocean of creation is far, far bigger than your little pond, know that as long as you have all decided to start to swim again, you will have no problem navigating these high seas of endless potential. For you will not drown, you will all thrive, for the moment you dare to fully immerse yourself into these waters, it will all come back to you, and you will be frolicking there along the rest of us. The Constant Companions. Channeled by Asia North. asianorth.wordpress.com